Okay, 1 second. Okay. Welcome everyone. So I will start off now. So welcome to this breakout session of the first innovation lab about measuring or new techniques to measure flood risk reduction of nature-based solutions and co-benefits. So the idea is to well, have a discussion, of course, so you can ask questions about us, but also the other idea is to, again, just like yesterday, invite two specialists to well, to kick off the discussion, basically. And the first specialist I would like to invite is Dr. Maria Bokariova, who's an assistant professor of land and urban economics at the University of Twente. And her research focuses on the economics of urban land development processes, considering their social and ecological values and impacts. So I will kick off a question, and the idea is, well, of course, if you have questions, also to put it in the chat or raise your hand, because we're with not such a big group, so I think that will work out fine. So the first question I would like to ask Maria, based on your 1 second. Based on your own research about valuing co-benefits of nature-based solutions, what additional research could be needed on valuing nature-based solutions planned for Limburg or in general?
Thank you. Well, thanks, Max. Thanks, team. Thanks, the project, to invite me. So it's a pleasure, and I've been collaborating with some of you before. So it's great to be here and to discuss issues that we are all working on from different perspectives. So. So you are asking about the what additional research could be needed in valuing nature-based solutions? Well, it's I'm not the first one to say it's not kind of an easy or kind of straightforward question. It's complex. There are many co-benefits. So perhaps a good thing to start with is to say which co-benefits are we interested in, or our thinking. So is there anything that I can particularly reflect on, Max, or should I just take it very kind of generically?
Well, in the case of so this particular innovation lab will focus on the case study of Limburg, where they will well, apply sort of measures to give space to rivers, right? So more natural vegetation, right. More natural flow of the river, and also to have some well, ponds to basically store the water in case of very high water. So create sort of lakes like that around the river. So yeah, those in particular, but you can also expand if you wish to.
Right. Okay. Well, this is a good setting, and well, in this situation, of course, we had the Space for the River project in the Netherlands. It's already carried out and finalized, and we can already observe how many co-benefits has created. It has created more natural flow. It has created then very natural kind of rivers, being well, attractive for urban residents, especially around the cities that along the river. So what kind of co-benefits we're talking here about? So just to bring it to something more specific, is that we're talking about well, nature getting closer to the cities, closer to the people. We're talking about lower risks, of course. We have well, higher safety levels. We're talking about possibilities for recreation. We're talking about well, just having different types of nature near the city, so it's green along the rivers, but also the rivers themselves is a wonderful place to recreate and just to enjoy, and additional water bodies add additional value sort of to the nature, to the quality of the nature. biodiversity is increasing or is improving, so we're having also better condition, natural condition of the rivers and the banks. So we're so these are at least a few co-benefits that we can just name just off the top of our heads. I can add a couple of more, because we were also involved in this in the project that I was working on, nature-based solutions in the city. So that's why I'm referring also to the cities in particular. So we're also creating, by naturing sort of the rivers, we're also creating some a new identity. So people identify with more natural rivers, for example. So we're getting into these topics as well, that are getting even less tangible, perhaps, than recreation and aesthetics. So these are interesting and relevant co-benefits. So it's an identity, so personal identity of place. So we are shaping also our areas in Limburg or wherever we do this. So so this is kind of getting from this sort of gray solutions, right, to green solutions. So this is these are the benefits that we are, or co-benefits that come along. So going back to valuing, so that's what is also the core of what I'm doing. So getting the benefit, the co-benefit, valuing the co-benefits. My view on it, and maybe let's just put it here on the table and see what others think and what other researchers or practitioners think about it. Valuing a particular co-benefit, I think it's quite an intricate task. It is not impossible. So let's say it kind of in a very simple way. If you want me to value all sense of identity or sense of place or biodiversity or anything that I've mentioned, I can do my best and even come up with a number. So having done applied the methods, surveying and so on, talking to people, so I can even come up with a number. So this is not a problem. I think this is not what we should be concerned about. The question that I'm having in this respect is that how will it help? So so the additional research in this way, so how will it help the number? Will it be taken into the decision making, and a public servant will say, oh, look, this is the value of identifying with new type of areas, the more greener rivers, so let's do that. I don't know, they just make a math and come up with a solution or with an answer. So so this is not about it. For me, it is not about it. So kind of valuing this sort of separate co-benefits, I don't think this is the way to go. I think it is and again, I'm putting this on the table and see whether this is something that others would like to react on. I think it is important to have numbers, to maybe rather a sort of a number that would say, okay, so what is the value of this solution? Not a particular co-benefit, but this set of solution for this area, right? So where you put in a new water body, where you kind of re-green and replenish the river, right? It's becoming broader, maybe it's deeper and so on. So, so what is the value of this particular solution to the people? Instead of saying, what is the value of identifying with this new one, and or the value of biodiversity, increased biodiversity. So I don't really think that this sort of valuing particular co-benefits is really beneficial or making more sense, but rather I would go for something of like this sort of project planning or valuing a particular project, because then you understand what you are valuing and what it is bringing to the particular area and to the particular people. And the last point that I want to make before I stop, and of course I'm not the only one to speak here, is an importance. I think what is important in this research is not so kind of finding ways to getting to the right values, and complementing those values with stories, so with narratives, so that it is not just a number that is having its own life and being used or misused even in some cases, but having it's really kind of a narrative that, because for example this identity or a recreation, it is not only a number, it's an experience, it's something that people rather would qualitatively explain or express rather than quantitatively in a single number of euros especially. So this is something that I'm looking at, and I think this is really very important, not to lose this track of the story and the narrative that goes together with any number that we produce.
Thanks, Maria. So if I understand it correctly, instead of focusing on particular or measuring particular co-benefits, you would prefer a more holistic view of all the co-benefits. So traditionally, these co-benefits would be measured with like contingent valuation, these kind of surveys or choice experiments.
Yeah.
And what do you think is still missing? So how could this be improved to measure all these different kind of benefits?
Okay, yeah. So if we go into the methods, really like into the how to, right? That is the question that you're interested?
Yes.
Right. So here, when we go into how to, if we say, okay, we do want a number, and it's getting to the point like, okay, we can have a number. I think what is important is to really understand how we can elicit these values if we go in, and how we can encapsulate particular values and disconnect them from others. So this is, I think, the most difficult part, because if we are talking about, well, it will be great for biodiversity, and people say, oh, I just go there for recreation. So personal preferences of different people play a big role. So how they are able, in how far they are able to disentangle different co-benefits from each other, if we want to value particular each of them separately. So I think this is the biggest challenge that I see there, at least for me personally. If I would have such a question, it's like, well, that's quite a task to be able to set up this survey and your instrument, whichever, well, there are different ways to elicit in a way that would really be able to value one of these co-benefits. I will say, well, either recreation, biodiversity, or new identity. How do you measure that in a proper way, so that you can say, well, what I get here is reliable. I trust this. I think that people really understood what I'm asking. I think that they connected to that and really could their choices or their answers were meaningful. So I think that's getting to that point is really the biggest challenge there.
Thank you, Maria. And so the next point, next question. Maybe this is more interesting for the project at least. So indeed, we have all these different benefits, right? First of all, of course, the risk reduction side of a nature-based solution, but then all the co-benefits that we just talked about and how to measure these. So that is very interesting, because of course, if you want to develop a business case or a financing scheme for nature-based solutions, you need to, well, an investor may be interested to see who are we financing it for, right? So in that sense, it is interesting to know all these specific values. And well, maybe I can just ask you to reflect on how this information, of these values, could feed into sustainable financing schemes of nature-based solutions.
Right. Well, this is a very good question, and this is touching a bit of a different area. And this is absolutely something that I've been also discussing with my colleagues in my previous work. We were talking about business cases, not particularly financing schemes, but this is definitely related to that. So what is coming up here, as far as I see it, is that we imagine that we are able, and we have those quantified values for co-benefits. The question here is which ones are really can get monetized and which ones not. So we cannot cash in a way everything that we have monetized, right? We can the values that we can elicit through surveys and so on can state the value that people potentially place it, but it doesn't mean that we can cash it and we can come with ATM or right with a purse open and say, well, you said you would, that's it's worth to you, so let's pay it. So this doesn't work like this. When we want to establish something like sustainable, so establish a business case, or in a particular here the sustainable finance scheme, it is I wonder actually, so I'm actually having a different question back, because so on my answer to this is like some of the values or are kind of can be monetized or can be cashed, and some are not. I think for financing, for insurance purposes, this can establish the value of an asset of interest, right, to be insured, and on basis of which not the interest, but the payments can be established and so on. So that I see that there is a direct I'd say benefit and advantage of having benefits, core benefits quantified. However, I'm just my question is it really we're moving to the practice where this is estimated values, they're non-market values, right? They're estimated by researchers like me and you. They are to be used for in practice.
Do you mean in practice for particularly for insurers? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's indeed a very good question. I think that's also a great question to connect with the next panelist, who's Philon Ooms, who's working in the Dutch Association of Insurers. So he's connecting a lot with different insurers in the Netherlands. So Philon, could I ask you to briefly reflect on whether you know if insurers are actually, well, in the Netherlands at least, are looking into these different kinds of values, and whether they are interested or already taking steps to get involved in nature-based solutions?
Yes, thank you, Max, and thank you, the project team as well. A pleasure to be here. Yeah, there are some examples, but it's rather small scale, actually. So like green roofs and those kind of like more household and sometimes business-related NBS examples. Really large scale is often rather difficult because there are some challenges to invest in some nature-based solutions. I can already go into these challenges, actually, if that's okay. Maybe also some reasons to overcome them. Because yeah, what Dr. Maria Bocayova also said was that it's quite difficult to quantify NBS, and insurers need to quantify it to be able to see, like, okay, what does this give me? What's the benefit of investing in this? And also insurers have like usually two sides. So there's one part is the investment side, and then there's the insuring side. The benefit is usually for the insuring side, right? So damage prevention, whereas the investment side would invest in that. So these are actually sometimes two different books, and almost two different entities within an insurer. And then it's difficult to combine these. So that's one of the challenges. So in general, it would help the insurer as a whole. But department-wise, like there's like investment from one side, and then there's the benefit on the other side. And what you do see is that what I said, small scale nature-based solutions are coming more and more and more, because Dutch insurers also see damage actually because of caused by extreme weather, increasing extreme weather, increasing in general. So the damage is increasing. So they need something to, I mean, there's always the premiums that they can adjust, but also prevention, damage prevention and damage reduction is a big way of actually steering that. So NBS can help in that. So on small scale, yes, but on larger scale, it's still difficult to invest. Also, like one example, for instance, if you have a nature-based solution that would protect a whole neighborhood, often these people that live in this neighborhood, they're insured with different insurers, so different insurance companies, so a wide array. Whereas, for instance, a few insurers would invest largely into such a nature-based solution. So the other insurers, I mean, they're competitors. They would free ride in a way of like, okay, not investing but gaining the benefits from that nature-based solution. It's a bit of a cynical argument, but it's a practical example of how insurers feel difficulty actually to invest in large-scale nature-based solutions. And I think there are ways to overcome that, for instance, by rules and regulations or investing in government bonds, and through that actually tackling the problem on a large scale. But it's one of the reasons that they are interested, but they feel a bit frightened to actually start doing this.
And so
Yes.
do you think that this reluctance maybe is because of a lack in trust in nature-based solutions, so compared to the traditional methods, right?
I think it would be wise. What I do see is if we emphasize the basically the money side, then people are listening more. So if we talk about all those co-benefits that are benefiting society as a whole, that's important. But some insurance companies might say, okay, that's important for society, but we also need something extra in order to take that last step. So emphasizing actually what it can do in like damage reduction and what it can save them actually on the long term, instead of focusing mainly on the co-benefits, would help, I think. And also some just examples actually. So pilots, examples of what it can help. Then they would also do that. I'm currently writing a report for the Dutch Central Bank on this as well, and we're also putting like this as a recommendation to just see this like nature-based solutions as an example as well, to invest in for like a long-term future in the Netherlands, because it's actually necessary. So there are some steps, but I do see that these steps are not in a high pace. So they should be like there should be a bit more a bit more pace basically, and that emphasizing the benefits can help. Yeah.
And is there a role also for the government maybe to stimulate this more?
Yeah, I do think so. What I see now is that they would contact us and say like, hey, this is interesting for you because it's like damage prevention. So could you help? Could you like ask your members to invest in this, or say that? And we actually need more than that. So we need examples and like really like numbers, and being able to quantify it in order to convince members of ours actually to invest in this, and to actually make this story a bit more holistic and a bit more tailored to the language they speak, insurers speak, than that governments speak. So that's one of the reasons that there is still reluctance, but it can change. So yeah. Someone was coming in here, but it's okay now.
Thanks, Philon. So yeah, if anybody has questions, by the way, just put them in the chat, because I cannot see who if you raise your hand. So please put them in the chat. Maria, sorry, I thought the question you asked connected well with Philon, so I directly went to Philon. You want to continue with your question on
Sure.
financing schemes? Did Philon address your question?
Yes. Yeah, so I was, so this is interesting what I'm hearing now. And of course, this is a different, like insurance is a different business case than, for example, a business case to realize a green solution, right? So this is a slightly different. So I'm just wondering, so actually we're back sort of to square one, where we say, well, what is important for insurers is just to know how much risk is being reduced, right? Just good old risk reduction. Kind of this physical aspect of nature-based solutions, number one, right? Because of course this is the this is the business, right? So we're talking about risk reduction, payments, premiums, and so on. So, but this means that we're talking about private risk. Is that, am I correct in that, or is there a spectrum between, like going from private to public risk that is being covered by insurers?
Yeah, we're talking mainly about a property insurance here. So that would mean well, private. Yeah, so I think that's the main focus. But I think in terms of that scope, the Naturance project is not very particular on that. So
yeah. Well, because if I hear that, well, this is definitely sort of this public good feature is coming up, that if insurance rely on each other in terms of investments, so like, of course, they will wait and say, well, we will insure, and of course, actually, we will only gain from this if someone else is paying for nature-based solution. We can have lower premiums, or at least lower risk for ourselves, but we don't have to invest. So this is this public good sort of well, story that is coming in. So that's why I was wondering if you have insurance also on the public level, like for municipalities or I don't know which other public bodies, then you can also cover that and have other interests, kind of more participatory interests involved for insurance, that they would be more willing perhaps to share the costs as well as the benefits.
Exactly, yeah. Yes, I'm not exactly aware of this type of insurance, at least. It is, of course, interesting. Well, in the end, it becomes a big coordination problem, right? Like if you have all these different benefits. So for sure, some public body could be involved, right? Like a municipality to coordinate who obtains the benefits. So insurers obtain part of it because they have less exposure. But also, of course, perhaps houses located near the nature-based solutions might experience a rise in their house value, for example.
Yes,
all these kinds of this type of coordination is might be needed in a financing scheme.
Then we're back to this sort of business model of really implementation. So we're not on the insurance part, but then on implementation. For example, if you set up a nature-based solution, insurers might be part of one of the partners who might be interested as a beneficiary, right? But also can be also, how to say, engaged on the cost side to share the costs with other partners, municipalities, and well, there is a whole spectrum. So this is a very interesting puzzle. So we were calling it a business puzzle, where different actors have different stakes and different benefits, but also can be engaged to share the costs so that it is bearable and of interest to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think these are all sort of pilot projects, right? It's very difficult to organize, and that's why also we haven't seen it that much yet. But perhaps that's also why new research is needed to actually well, establish this more. So that's at least the goal of the innovation lab, is to figure out whether this is possible for this particular case in Limburg. Is there anybody from the public who would like to ask?
Yeah, I think Mia Abeltop just shared also some like a very interesting document. Maybe she could elaborate more. I've seen it, but we use it as well for our paper. But yeah, it would be interesting to hear more.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Well, I worked in the insurance industry for about 30 years, and also the Norwegian Association of Banks and Insurance. So I think, and I've been involved in this discussion for some years, and I think you have to look at the regulation of insurance. And EIOPA is the European regulation on private insurance. So the fact is that the insurance also under the Solvency II, which is the regulation for insurance, they cannot insure things they don't understand the risk. So and they compete within each other. So, you know, to believe that it would be nice to have them to pay into different things and be part of it, you really need to dig down how insurance is working and how they compete, because if one insurance company pays money into a project, it could easily be a benefit for the other insurance companies because the flooding is not hitting and helping their portfolio. So you really need to diversify insurance, not as a big group, but as competitors. So, and also the fact that the Solvency II regulation is quite strict, that they're not even allowed to insure something they don't know what is. The risk is, who knows? If you ask an insurance about, do you know what a nature-based solution is? They would say, no idea. So you have to say, well, more concrete, what type of solution are we talking about? Well, if you do something upstream with the rivers, would it benefit our portfolio in my insurance company, or would it actually benefit the other one so that it doesn't have any risk reduction effect on or impact on my portfolio? So it's not like a bag of money that they can just use for good projects. That would be some large companies like the reinsurers, like most of your example is from Munich Re or Swiss Re, which is a different matter than the non-life direct insurance company. So you really also have to divide between, are we talking to a reinsurer, a non-life insurer, or a pension fund with money investing in this? So this diversification is absolutely critical if you want to talk to them. And I've been part of another EU project called Merlin, where we've been interviewing and having roundtable with various insurance companies on exactly this issue. So you might be able to find something on Merlin project that is already delivered on these issues. And we are also interested, of course, to follow insurance. I like this project because we are starting another EU project in September called Soteria, where we were looking into different more innovative solutions due to climate change, and also use parametric insurance, and also how can insurance incentivize new type of insurance solutions that are more sustainable, also using nature-based solutions. So we can be in touch later. But that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. Philon, do you want to respond to this? Or?
Yeah, I think it ties very well to my argument as well that usually on small scale insurers would actually Dutch non-life insurers could invest in it for like for instance for a business, but on these large scale projects, I mean they're competitors. So this is like the also a bit of the free rider argument that ties to it as well. And lastly, I think insurability is also an interesting part of it. You see in the Netherlands that there are some parts, low-lying areas, but also next to the river areas that are prone to flooding. And nature-based solutions, small scale, could help these assets actually to be more insurable, or especially in the future. So that might be a way also of seeing like, okay, we still want to insure this property, what is there, but it's prone to flooding, so we'll probably not insure it on the long term. But if you can quantify again, like, okay, what does this contribute? This nature-based solution contributes to actually not flooding, so or damage prevention, then this might be also a button to like switch to like make it insurable compared to non-insurability. But it's all small scale, and what I said big scale is large scale is a different discussion. Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
We're working on a project in a startup company in Norway called Mitigate, and we're looking at how can a nature-based solution be used when as a build back better principle under the Sendai framework, which means if there's a damage, can the insurance company, your contract with your insurance company, help you incentivize when they're after a damage that you're building back better, meaning you're using nature-based solution when you're building up your assets or your insured area, what is insured after flooding or flash flood. And we also see when I'm a consultant now, I'm not working in the association anymore, but when I worked in the association, we use the insurance loss data to see which areas are very affected and vulnerable for a new flooding or flash flood or stormwater problems. And now, after it took only 7 years, but finally we got the insurance, all the insurance companies, and we also have regulation around it to share their loss data. So which shows where's the problem, what was happening, how much did it cost, etc. So that the municipalities can have this loss data and much better understand where do we have to invest so they're more accurate. And that's another thing. So these were two different things. And the third thing is like, what type of data do the insurance industry need to understand nature-based solution and understand the risk? How do we, this is also something that you could put into a project in the discussion. Like, could they have data that would make them understand the risk and make them define what type of nature-based solution would fit for these type of properties when building back after a flooding or event. Okay, I think I've take too much of your time already, so I'll back out.
Thank you, Mia. Maria, do you want to respond to this?
Well, it's very good points, and not only because they are just valid, but this is really from the point of view of insurance. Indeed, the market is heterogeneous. So as pointed out, insurers are competitors. It is what is insurable. So all these questions very important. They touch on the other side, then they don't touch on co-benefits as much, but even on the benefit side, I think another question to be raised here is, so there is a data available by insurers. So however, who is insuring? So is there also a diversity across private actors, like the households, who can or cannot insure, who do or do not insure, right? So there is a kind of, unless the insurance is compulsory, there is a choice. And I think there we also need to have an eye on whether, if we're steering on insurance or through insurance, then what about those who do not insure? Usually they're kind of lower income households and so on. So we're getting into this justice questions through these questions, sort of. So just to keep it broad, not to kind of to forget.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Are there any further questions? I think we have one. Yeah,
I just shared one link. It's in Dutch though, but it's our like monitor where we actually show the damage. So this data, this insurance data, we have them as in the Dutch Association, and in the Netherlands, the insurance penetration is really high. So if you would have a look at it, I think it might be interesting to have a look at it in the Dutch scope of like, okay, where do damages happen? How often? It's all weather related. So it's in the chat for everyone to see.
Well, thanks, Philon. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
And everybody else for participating.
Thank you.
We'll see you back in the main room.
Thank you. Bye-bye.